95.3 The Bear, Bama's best country, in studio with me again today. One last time, I guess, before you head off to Arizona. Ryan Fowler from The Game over on Tide 99.1. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you ready? You board a plane here in a little while, right?
I'm a little nervous, but I always do this prior to flying. And so I'm a little bit nervous.
Is it nervous like Crimson Tide nervous, or is it nervous like, oh my gosh, I don't want to fly nervous?
Nervous that I don't want to fly. No, I'm not as concerned about the game. I'm pretty confident in this football game on Monday night. And I think it's, this football team is just giving us a lot of gratification. I mean, as an Alabama fan, growing up in this state and doing a radio show and having a chance to cover Nick Saban, I mean, chew on this for a minute. If they win Monday night, 4 out of the last 7.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that's pretty large. I
mean, you back up a little bit and you say 4 out of the last 7.
And to think what we did between, say, Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
Right. And if you really think about it, 4 out of the last 7, there's probably 10 plays and they would be going 6 out of 6. Or excuse me, 6 out of 7.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to think that this team is right there every single year, a chance to win a national title. It's really amazing what Nick Saban has been able to do.
Now, do you think the turning point in this year was losing to Ole Miss?
I think it could have been. I think you go back to Ole Miss, the following week, they called a players-only meeting inside the locker room. And they said that's not an Alabama standard. We didn't play to an Alabama standard. 5 turnovers, giving up that many points on the defensive side of the football. They were embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the leadership of this team, that's one of the things that makes this team so special is they police themselves. I mean, we go back to Tony Brown, and certainly that's a negative when you get sent home from a bowl game, a defensive back that's a backup but seen some playing time, and it was a very big special teams role player, made some great tackles. To send him home for a disciplinary problem, to be suspended, that was self-police. I mean, they policed themselves. And I think that's good about this leadership is the way that it was described to me is if a parent corrects a child, then obviously that child's going to listen. But if Big Brother does it and says, hey, little brother, you're not able to do that. You need to be better on your grades. It just means something more. And I think that's where you see that's special about this football team. They've got a great core of leaders, and this team's focused. They're ready to play this game. They were ready 15 minutes after the Michigan State game, but this team is focused, and they are dialed in. Everything that I'm hearing, it's not – you see Clemson on television, and you see them as more like Michigan State, relaxed, laughing, having a good time, glad to be here.
Yeah.
Alabama's like, hey, it's a business trip.
Yeah, there you go. They're Saban serious, So what do we need to do to beat Clemson?
I think there's 2 things that you really, really want to focus on. When you look at Alabama's defensive front, you got to be disciplined. You're not able, obviously you want to get after the quarterback, but you got to be able to stay in your lanes because you've got a rushing quarterback. If you flush him out of the pocket, he can beat you with his mobility. And also not just defensive front, but to secondary. You cannot leave your guy. When you're covering a wide receiver and you see that quarterback scrambling, automatically you think about running, right? You're trying to react to his running. And if you do that, he's going to go pop right over the top of your head. And we've seen that a couple of times with mobile quarterbacks this year, and you see it all over college football. But defensive backs have got to be disciplined enough to lock in on their wide receiver. Don't leave your guy. There's other people that are responsible for that quarterback once he gets outside of the pocket. Now, once he goes beyond the line of scrimmage, hit him.
Yeah.
I mean, get him. But you got to make sure 100% without any shadow of a doubt that he's beyond the line of scrimmage. If he's behind it, he can beat you for a long play. And I think that's where, if you look at Alabama, the only team that can beat Alabama is Alabama by making a couple of mistakes, giving some turnovers and some short fields to Clemson. As
we saw with the Ole Miss game, Alabama beat Alabama in the Ole Miss game, essentially. So
5 turnovers and still had a chance to win it.
Yeah. So you expect a couple touchdowns, Alabama to win, right?
I expect Alabama to win by a couple of touchdowns. And, I'm looking more to score, probably like 31-17.
Yeah.
It may be 31-14. I don't think Alabama's going to have any trouble with Clemson. Listen, you may come back, and I'll be back here in town on Thursday. We'll be back in studio. and you can serve me the biggest plate of crow, and you can say you were wrong.
Hopefully I won't have to, Ryan. That's what I'm hoping, man.
But I think Alabama's going to win. I think they're going to win comfortably. I think it's one of those games that when you can pound Derrick Henry and run between the tackles, and I think you can do that against Clemson. To sort of put this in a comparison, I know Michigan State stopped Derrick Henry, but they are a lot better run-stopping team than Clemson. Clemson really hasn't faced a big back that's got moves and winning the Heisman Trophy and Derrick Henry. But I mean, you look at Deshaun Watson. He's got something to prove because he went to New York City and was may have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder for losing the Heisman Trophy because he was one of the finalists. So he may want to have the game of his life. But watch out for Jacob Coker because we're talking a lot about Deshaun Watson and not a lot about Jacob Coker. Mm-hmm. He went into that Michigan State game 25 of 30 for 284. Yeah. He got the job done because he had a chip on his shoulder. Watch out for Jacob Coker because the more they praise Deshaun Watson, the more Jacob Coker gets ignored. And that may be a good thing for Alabama.
The sleeper hit of the summer. All right, Ryan Fowler from the game, Tide 99.1. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a safe trip.
Thank you so much. We're going to have coverage all weekend long.
On Tide 99.1.
All weekend long. So we're going to be out there broadcasting live and going to be having some fun. But we'll bring back some jewelry and some hardware. We'll see what we can do.
Good, man. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide to you.